As Father Butler and Father Jean Baptiste Berthier have remarked, we have no authentic history of the life of Saint Roch, and yet some facts combined with pious legends are commonly reported. He was born at Montpellier in medieval Occitania around 1295 and died in 1327. His father was governor of that city, and at his birth, St. Roch is said to have been found miraculously marked on the breast with a red cross. Deprived of his parents when about 20 years old, he distributed his fortune among the poor, handed over to his uncle the government of Montpellier, and in the disguise of a mendicant pilgrim set out for Italy. St. Roch stopped at many towns along the way, all of which were stricken by the plague, and he devoted himself there to the plague-stricken, curing them with the sign of the cross. Eventually, he made his way to Rome. Everywhere, the terrible scourge of the plague disappeared before his miraculous power. At some point during Roch's journey, he himself was stricken with the plague. He withdrew to a hut in a neighboring forest, where his wants were supplied by a gentleman named Godard, who by a miracle had learned the place of his retreat. So it is believed that it was Godard's dog that brought the saint bread, helping him recover. For this reason and for other reasons, the saint has been given the patronage of dogs and dog lovers. After his recovery, Roch returned to France. Arriving at Montpellier and refusing to disclose his identity, he was taken for a spy in the disguise of a pilgrim and cast into prison by order of the governor, his own uncle, some writers say, where 5 years later he died. The miraculous cross on his breast, as well as a document found in his possession, served for his identification. He was accordingly given a public funeral, and numerous miracles attested to his sanctity. In 1414, during the Council of Constance, the plague having broken out in that city, the fathers of the council ordered public prayers and processions in honor of the saint, and immediately the plague ceased. His relics, according to some, were carried furtively to Venice in 1485, where they are still venerated. It is commonly held that he belonged to the Third Order of St. Francis, but it cannot be proven. Nevertheless, it is an open question. Urban VIII approved the ecclesiastical office to be recited on his feast, which is August 16th. Paul III instituted a confraternity under the invocation of the saint to have charge of the church and hospital erected during the pontificate of Alexander VI. The confraternity increased so rapidly that Paul IV raised it to an archconfraternity with powers to aggregate similar confraternities of St. Roch. It was also given a cardinal protector, and a prelate of high rank was to be its immediate superior. Various favors have been bestowed on it by Pius IV, Gregory VIII, Gregory XIV, and by other pontiffs, and it still flourishes to this day. Saint Roch lived in Occitania, which is a word that describes a medieval world less identifiable in terms of political boundaries and more identifiable with the language and culture. Occitania comprised mostly southern France, to include Montpellier, Narbonne, and other major cities. Culturally speaking, Occitan medieval identity was marked by the troubadours. Not quite the stereotype of the more culturally proximate hippie, troubadours were identified with the secular poet and the joy of love. Their bardic ways celebrated courtly romance and chivalric ideals. Court life for many troubadours was ideally one in which gifts were freely dispensed with. In an atmosphere of smooth, cheerful, harmonious social intercourse, with music and female company, where leaders of society welcomed their inferiors without aloofness and listened to their advice, and handled difficult people with discrimination and tact. The ideal of the court was embodied in courts like those of Boniface of Montferrat, in which reigned all grace, the giving of gifts and the courting of ladies, fine clothes, elegant armor, trumpets, games, and song, or in courts like that of Alfonso X of Castile, where no good man need wait in vain for gifts, where people listen to reason, and they do so without arrogance or boorishness. The basic principle of the troubadour culture is the tempering of seriousness with whimsical and sometimes outrageous audacity, like that of the jester. The world Saint Roch grew up in was a world very much like that of another saint, Saint Francis of Assisi, who after aspiring to knighthood and a life of worldly gain, underwent a radical conversion to a religious life of poverty and worldly renunciation. Nearly every biographical account of Saint Roch testifies to him being born with a red cross on his chest, which is said to have been a sign of special predestination that helped identify him at his death. Some biographical accounts offer a description of the saint's early life, and one such account reads that Saint Roch's parents obtained his birth through their persevering prayers, promising to give God the child he would grant them. The miracle child was born with a red cross on his chest, a sign of special predestination. From the age of 5, he began to chastise his little body with deprivation. As he grew up, he was marked by a special grace, also, of hospitality to the poor and to travelers. He was not 20 years old when he had the pain of losing his father and mother in secession. So he sold his goods, made himself poor of Christ, and following the example of St. Francis of Assisi, he entered the Third Order and dressed as a pilgrim took the way to Rome, asking for alms. In Rome, the miracles multiplied under his footsteps, and he lived there for 3 years without making his name and origin known, even to the pontiff. Another account details his death. Saint Roch felt that his end was drawing near. He asked that a priest might come and administer the last sacraments. The priest, on entering the prison, beheld it supernaturally lit, and the poor captive surrounded with special radiance. As death claimed its victim, a tablet appeared on the wall, on which an angelic hand wrote in golden letters the name Roch, and the prediction that all who would invoke his intercession would be delivered from the plague. Saint Roch is an exemplar of hiddenness and most humble renunciation. Like Saint Francis, he resigned himself entirely from the world. He left it as far as possible. And like St. Francis, the beauty and decorum of Roch's will in this regard, betokens an image, an art world of creativity born out of a life of penance and simple obedience to God. Moreover, like St. Francis, St. Roch was inclined to receive Christ in a special way, in the sublimity of a new creation. Hence, even a neighbor's dog came to his aid when he needed the aid the most. St. Roch's special sign of predestination was the cross, the foci for every unique ray of creaturely sanctity, which he felt most acutely while languishing in the forest of worldly plague and while languishing in the prison of false accusation. Despite the little known about his life, the divine art still bequeaths to us a microcosm of eternity in the life of this saint, a full art of living forms. And we have only scratched the surface of it. Still, Saint Roch is an exemplar for the school of penance, hiddenness, and humility. Like him, may we stand vindicated by God through an irrefutable sign, the golden word of an angelic message, achieved not by arms, but by spirit, not by worldly honor, but the honor of eternal things, not by great deeds, but deeds of love and sacrifice. In this lies the sacred songs of poets, not the gifts of men, but the treasures of heaven.